for President of Hockey Operations and General Manager Ken Holland. Again, if you have questions, please use the raise hand function. If you have a follow-up, ask it following your first. Start with Jim Matheson, Post Media.
Ken, can you talk about the first half and what you liked and what you still think you need to work on?
Well, I mean, obviously, Jim, we were slow out of the gate. We were 3-6 out of our first 9, and then I think we were 14-5 their last 19. So, I think we had lots of new players when the season started. We obviously we lost Mike Smith on opening night, and Koski had to go out there night after night for every second night for the first 11 or 12, and I think we overworked him. Getting Smitty back, we got our the way we wanted to build the team to have both guys share time in the net. So certainly what I like that we've found ways to win. I liked that, we had a tough 3-game series against Toronto, and I like that we really dug in and found a way to grind out a win against Calgary on Saturday night, get down early, games tied. They scored early in the third period. We found a way to score too late. So I think that we're finding different ways to win. I think our goals against have come down recently, so I think that we feel like we're trending in the right direction. But you can been around the league a long time. You can never get satisfied or complacent. Every night's a new challenge, and I think we like that we're in the thick of things. We were second place, but I know Winnipeg's got some games in hand, and Montreal's got some games in hand, and. I still think it's going to be a photo finish to make the playoffs in our division. So we like the position we're in, but there's still 28 games to go for us, half a season.
And has Jesse Puljujarvi been the biggest, I guess, positive for you? I wouldn't say surprise, but the biggest positive for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wasn't here when he was here the first go round. So, since day one, he's the things I looked for, he'd come into camp in a great attitude. Obviously, a year ago, didn't really want to be an Oiler, and so he came to camp. I was happy that when I got the news there, when it was about August or September, from his agent that Jesse was having a change of heart, and got him signed to a contract. He came into camp and with a great attitude, by his play, by the fifth game, I think we were in Winnipeg, Dave Tippett moved him up to a line with Connor, and I thought he was that game in Winnipeg, he was outstanding, and every game he seems to have gotten more confident. I say he plays a North American game. He's a North-South game. He's forechecked. He's wins puck battles. He gets the pucks in the hands of his line mates. He goes to the blue paint, the areas to score goals. He's been like you said, a real pleasant surprise for us, and being 23 years of age and just starting to gain his confidence certainly. Looks like he has a chance to be a real important part of our team going forward.
Tim Campbell, NHL.com.
Hi, Ken. Where has the pandemic affected you most in the way you're doing your job as general manager?
Well, I think this season, obviously, with the pandemic in Canada and the quarantine, I guess, our farm team is in in California. So when Slater Kukuk was injured with his basically out for most of the regular season, you call up Theodor Lundstrom. It's really 2 weeks in quarantine, and then it's another 5, 6, 7 days, another week at least to get him. It's 3 weeks before you get a player. Obviously, we picked up Alex Stalock off of waivers. Same situation. It's going to be probably 3 weeks before he's going to be eligible to play. So I think what the pandemic has done for the Canadian teams, obviously some teams Calgary kept their farm team in in Calgary this year instead of going to Stockton. We talked internally. We liked the idea that Bakersfield is right in the midst of 7 teams down there, and we wanted to play lots of games, so I think they're going to play 40 games. So I think probably basically having our farm team being in Canada with the quarantine period, access to players has made things interesting.
Jason Gregor, TSN 1260.
Dave, we're basically a month away from the NHL trade deadline.
Ken. Jason Ken.
When you kind of look at it this year and your team, and obviously I know quarantine plays a factor in it, but in an ideal world, would you want, a little bit more size on your second or third line?
I think you're always looking for, I've been fortunate enough, to have been with a team that's gone to the Stanley Cup Finals 6 times. We won 4 times. When you get into the playoffs, you need size, you need depth, you're going to have injuries, and certainly the playoffs are about you either wear somebody down or they're going to wear you down. You need difference makers, star players, and you need goaltending, but certainly there's teams that are left standing at the end. The 2 teams that you lose lots of players along the way. They're banged up, they're beat up from blocking shots, and you do it every second night for 2 months. So certainly I think you're always looking at the trade deadline for either probably some size or experience. Players that have been in playoffs before and they know what it's all about. They're going to bring that level of experience to your locker room.
And in a normal year, Ken, you've always talked about, hey, if the young guys are here and they're going to play, then they play. But the minute they don't play, you'd send them down. Obviously, you don't have that option this year. So how does it change with Evan Bouchard? Because your first goal is to win, but if he only plays, let's say, 10 more games this year, do you really think that's that much of a negative to his overall long-term development?
Well, I don't. I mean, Evan played last year all year in the American League, so he's got 1 year basically of American League experience. I think he's played 9 games. We played 28, so I guess he's played 9 out of 28. I'm not sure what the next 28 are going to bring. We'll see. But, we've got a taxi squad of, 8 or 9 guys players that don't play every day. They practice hard. They compete hard. You look at J.J. Kara, who was out and he's come in from the taxi squad, and he's had a real impact on our team, and he's in the lineup every night. So I can't tell you what's going to happen 1 and 2 weeks down the road. When Evan was in there, he played. We thought he played well. I think he's ready to go. He's a young player. I'm sure he's probably a little bit frustrated and anxious to get in the lineup. But the number one thing we're trying to accomplish on a night-to-night basis is to win a game, and we're trying to, Dave Tippett and myself balance winning and developing. And I think that, Bush is going to be here all year. I don't see any need or desire to send him back to Bakersfield. He's been there and he's done that, and he did a good job. So, he talks to Jim Playfair on a regular basis. He's practicing with the Edmonton Oilers, so I believe he's getting better every day, and he's learning a lot. And when he gets an opportunity, we believe he's going to be ready to go in there and help us win.
Ken, can you just shift the mic forward a little bit?
Can I do what?
Move the mic forward just a little bit. There we go. Thank you. Next question, Ryan Rashog, TSN.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, Ryan.
You moved some assets out at the deadline last year. You brought some guys in. Where would you say your willingness is this year to move, potentially move more picks and spend more assets in an effort to bolster yourself? Is there any hesitation to be as aggressive as you were last year, or where's your head at on that?
Well, I would say to you, Ryan, if you look at the moves, I look at our team this year versus last year. I believe we're deeper this year than we were last year. You know, that was by design. If you look at the, you know, the off season that we had, and I signed a lot of, you know, we're able to carry basically 29 players, 23 on the active roster and 6 on the, so we've got a team of 29. So, you know, we went out and signed lots of veteran NHL players. Last year, I don't think we were quite as deep. You know, obviously, as an example, I signed Mike Green traded for Mike Green last year at the deadline. You know, Bouchard is here now. We had signed Slater Cuckoo, Tyson Berry, Laguson's a year older, Jones is a year older, Bear's a year older. You know, so I think we're deeper on defense this year than we were a year ago. Again, I think we've got, what, 16, 17 NHL forwards that are on our 29-man list. So I'm not looking for depth. Last year, I made a couple of moves for depth and maybe tried to swing at the fence a little bit on Athanasiou. So I don't think we need depth. I think feel good about our depth. If there's a player out there that we think can go into our lineup and have an impact more than depth, probably that would be something that I would look at.
In the off season, there was some optimism around getting a contract done with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Obviously, things are put on hold. Is there anything new to update on that front? Has there been any progress made with him?
Well, the only progress for me would be if you're having a press conference. So I guess the answer to the progress part would be no. You're either talking or you're announcing a deal. So don't have a deal to announce. I have been in contact with his agent Rick Follett, and you know, I just think, Ryan, when you look around the league with the pandemic. The flat cap, obviously, it appears it's going to be flat for the next, I think Gary Bettman, if I'm not mistaken, said recently in the last couple of days, you know, it's going to be flat here for the next 3-4 years. It's trying to find a solution that works for the player and also makes good sense for the team. It's a different, sort of a new marketplace. So I think that's all added up to the slowness of the market. And in Ryan's case, again, I would like to have him as part of our team going forward, but a deal has to make sense for both sides. And again, there's an unknown here because we've never been here with a flat cap for looking forward for the next few years and how it's going to affect the decisions that everybody makes in this league.
Jim Matheson, Post Media.
Has there been any move from Oscar Klefbom's status in terms of having his shoulder surgery? Because that was, you know, we're going back months now, and 2 months ago we talked to him, and there was a possibility he might have shoulder surgery. Is there any?
Yes, there is, Jim. He's going to have surgery. It's in March. It's like March. We've got a few people getting surgery. So Alan Quine's got to get surgery. Clef's getting surgery. There's a book date. A date booked, a surgery date booked. It's like March 20th, 25th, somewhere in that time frame in Cleveland.
Okay, and you have, without Oscar, you're trying lots of guys on left defense, whether that's Lagesson or Jones. Is there any sense there that without Oscar in the minutes he plays, you would like to get a more veteran left defenseman if you're in the playoff?
Not really. I think I would give you the same answer. Chris Russell's a veteran defenseman. I think he's played great for us all year. You know, Russ is 33. I thought in the bubble last year in the playoffs against Chicago, Chris played great. He's a veteran guy, blocks shots. I think he plays a style of game that come playoff time, he goes to the hard areas, he battles, he competes, he blocks shots. So, obviously William Lagesson now is getting an opportunity. I think he's done a nice job here for us. And then a while back. Then he got hurt, and came back and did a good job. So certainly we want to watch to see how Laggy plays. Caleb Jones is a young player that played real well last year when he got an opportunity, and he's been in the lineup and out of the lineup. So again, I think we've got good depth. I think if you're talking about trying to go out and get a legit top four, whether it's a lefty, any lefty or a righty defenseman, number one, there's not a lot of them that are going to be available, and those that are going to be available, the price is going to be high if they are available. So I think we've got good depth on defense. We've got lots of lefties, lots of righties. We just talked about Bouchard, who's a right shot defenseman, the 10th pick in the draft a few years ago, and a player with lots of potential. We're having a hard time getting him in the lineup. And on left, you got William Lagesson. We've got you've got Chris Russell. You've got Caleb Jones. We'll possibly get back Slater Kukuk sometime around the end of the regular season, maybe right in the start of the playoffs. So we believe we've got good depth.
Jack Michael, 630 Ched.
Ken, how are you?
Good.
I was curious, day-to-day wise, is your existence as it relates to your job much different with the pandemic? For example, do you see Dave a lot more? Do you talk to him a lot more in person? Are you around the team a lot more than you ordinarily would be?
Yes, my job, my day-to-day, I guess for you to say, duties are way different. When in a normal year, I would be traveling more. I would go, I'd go to the World Junior and scout the World Junior. I'd go down to Bakersfield and, once every 6 weeks and try to catch them play on a weekend and watch the players down there. I would go, I'd go to Europe 2 or 3 times to, look at players that we owned or look at, unrestricted free agents. And I would probably go out the second, February, March, and April and look at players for the amateur draft, with our scouts, just to kind of have a look at some of the players that we might be looking at, for our first pick. So now I'm with the team every day. So it's certainly different. But obviously I'm gonna have probably a much better feel for our team as we head into whether it's the trade deadline or the off season.
And then the follow-up would be, in terms of things from this season carrying forward into whatever the new normal turns out to be. For instance, the players have, talked about how they like this schedule, less travel, couple games in a row against the same opponent. They feel, better rested, maybe makes for better competition. Are there things from this season that you would glean as potentially coming up at the next round of GM meetings that we may see again?
Well, I think the schedule, as an example, would be depending on how, how they. Well, I guess you have your divisions. If we get back and we're going to be able to go across the border for 21-22, and we're going to play the Eastern Conference, and we play them home and away, once at the East and once at home, you're not going to be able to have those. That you can only have those series against teams in the Western Conference, and then if the teams in the other division of the Western Conference, we only play them 3 times, half of them 2 at home and half of them 2 on the road. So you're limited on the potential of having these types of series in future seasons. So I think this is a one-off. It doesn't mean you can't have 2 or 3 times next year where you play somebody a couple of times. But I think I would expect, for the most part, I'm not the schedule maker, but I would think if we're going to start to get back to normal, and when you look at the matrix of the schedule, this type of a schedule would be difficult to put together, or impossible, just because of the matrix.
Final 2 questions, Mark Spector, then Ryan Rashog. Mark Spector, Sportsnet, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Kenny, I'm coming in late here. I hope I'm not asking the same question, but do you gotta, with the trade deadline coming up, I know it's always, you're a dollar in, dollar out guy most of the year, but not necessarily at the deadline. Can you get some work done at the deadline that doesn't have to be dollar in, dollar out?
No. Well, we're in LTI, Mark. So the way the league the way the CBA is, you know, when a team is in long-term injury, we were in long-term injury on opening day when we put Clefbaum in long-term injury. We're in long-term injury the entire year. So basically, what ends up happening is when you go into long-term injury, you in effect set your cap that day, and then we don't accrue any space. So if you're not in long-term injury, you can accrue space. So if let's say you're $1 million under the cap, and you're not in long-term injury, and you get over an 82-game season. Now the numbers are going to be different a little bit because it's a 56-game schedule, but over an 82-game schedule, probably it's 4-1. Somewhere around $1 million becomes a $4 million player. Well, when you're in long-term LTI, that $1 million just continues to be $1 million from the start of the season until you get to the trade deadline. You don't accrue any space. So we are dollar in, dollar out from the first day of the season until the last day of the season.
Do you, with that in mind, and with the fact that we've got the quarantine going on, and if you're trading with a Canadian team, you're trading with a team in your division, which almost never happens at the deadline. How tough is it to make a deal here at the trade deadline for Ken Holland?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult. And I would say to you, Mark, you know, obviously when we got, you know, the rules, you know, you knew that you could carry anybody from 20 to 23 on your roster, players. Well, we decided to go 23. And then they wanted, you know, a taxi squad had to be a minimum of 4 to a maximum of 6. So we went with 6. You know, so we've decided to have basically 29 players that if we get, so that when we got to the trade deadline, then, you know, obviously we knew there was a quarantine in you know, January. Nobody knew what the situation was going to be in March and April and May, but you had to project that there was a possibility that the quarantine would still be in place. That's why we carried 29 people. That's why we I guess was, you know, the reason why we picked up Alex Stalock. We called up Theodore Lindstrom. You know, we're trying to stay at 29 so that we don't need depth, that we've got the depth built in. And it's like I said to Jim Matheson, he asked me a question about the deadline. You know, if I do something at the deadline, it won't be for depth. We've got depth. It would be to try to, you know, bring in a player that's going to have a bigger impact on the team. Now when you go that route, now you go back, it brings you back around to the LTI, the dollar in, dollar out. So is it going to be difficult to do a deal? Much, much more difficult than in the past.
Last question, Ryan Rashog, TSN.
So I've seen Dylan play, you know, games. You know, obviously they're taped and you can watch them. But I've watched probably, you know, if he's played 20. I watched every game for Canada at the World Junior. You know, I've seen him play 15 to 20 times. He's obviously had a great year. You know, he's in the top 5 in the nation in producing offense as a 19-year-old when there's lots of players that are 18 to 23. So, you know, He's 6'1", he's 210 pounds, you know, so size and strength are not going to be an issue. You know, my attitude always has been, you know, when I was in Detroit, I put Dylan Larkin was on the team at 19. I just want young players to play, and I want them to be in an environment where they can continue to grow and be confident, and they're not just out there to try to not make a mistake and get off the ice and get the next shift. So, if you know, his season's going to end here probably in the next, I think the Final Four is in early April, so they're probably 3 weeks away. Over the next 2-3 weeks, I'll talk to his agent and talk to Dylan and make a decision whether he's going to stay in school for another year or whether he's going to come out, turn pro. And if he turns pro, we'll get him out right after the season, and then have to make a decision whether he goes to Bakersfield or immediately comes here. Then I would have a conversation with Dave Tippett, see what Tip thinks about our team and our where we're at. But I don't want to just bring him in here and just have him. If we sign him, I don't want him just to come here and be on the taxi squad. If we sign him, then I want young players to play. I want them to play. I want them to be on the ice late in the game, protecting a 1-goal lead or trying to score a goal when you're down by a goal. I want them to be in important moments. That's how I think players develop. I don't think players develop by practicing, you know. And I talked about Evan Bouchard. Evan Bouchard had did that last year at the American League. He's now gone past the American League. He's at the NHL. So I look at where players are in their stages of development, and then try to make decisions that are what I think in the best interests of the player, of the young player.
Sounds like you're saying there's a chance? Kind of a maybe?
Yeah. I don't know. I never say yes to anything. I think that I got it. You know, what I'm saying is, you know, when his year, I want to leave him be. You know, I haven't talked to his agent. I want Dylan to help to finish strong, to have his total focus on Wisconsin and helping the Wisconsin hockey. Tony Granato obviously was an assistant coach with the Detroit Red Wings when I was there. I want that young player's focus to be solely on helping Wisconsin win the Big Ten, get into the tournament, and be the NCAA college hockey champions. Then I'll have a conversation with his agent, and I'm sure I'm already thinking about it internally. I have not reached out. I want his focus to be on Wisconsin, and then we'll talk when his season's over about what the next moves are. But I'm open to anything as long as it's in the best interests of the young player.
All right, last one for me, and thanks for your time.
No problem.
Is there a stage here where you gauge whether the relationship with Tyson Barrie lasts for more than a year? What's your sort of sense on a timeline for getting a gauge on that? Because obviously the results have been pretty good so far. Yeah,
I haven't. I guess I would say to you, Ryan, if I'm watching the standings, and the standings, all that information dictates how you got to respond. If we're comfortably in a playoff spot as we push forward to the trade deadline, then I have the luxury of being able to. The number one priority for the Edmonton Oilers for me is to try to win. We got to play our way in. We want to get into the playoffs. That's our goal. That's our team goal. And then try to see what we can do come playoff time. Then there's 21-22. If it looks like you're gonna all of a sudden you go on a losing streak and it looks like there's a chance you're not gonna make the playoffs, then they got to decide what to do with players who are unrestricted free agents, whether you engage in a negotiation to sign them or you trade them. If you got unrestricted free agents, you're going to miss the playoffs and you're not going to get them re-signed, you trade them. So to this point in time, we've we're playing our way into the playoffs, and I haven't reached out. I haven't really reached out to anybody right now. I've been just sort of assessing our team, but certainly Tyson's played, got off to a bit of a slow start. He's played really, really good. Looks like he's been a real good fit to our team, and at some point in time, I'll obviously talk to his agent about what Tyson's thinking. But right now, I've just sort of, up to this point in time, wanted to see how it all fits, and certainly we're happy here over the last, 14-5, the last 19 games. We've played our way into a good spot. So I'm not really answering your question, but I don't know if I've really got an answer, other than if our team looks like it was going to miss the playoffs, I'd probably have to be under more pressure to do something. The number one goal is to try to qualify for the playoffs. That's the number one goal for me and for the Edmonton Oilers for this season.
Thank you. This concludes Ken Holland's media availability.